Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hired to Lead, a podcast brought to you by Zeren, part of Renovata. I'm Kim Wardle, Director of Design and Innovation Search. We don't just place world-class leaders, we also give you insight into their journeys, the moments that tested them, the pivots they didn't see coming, and the decisions that defined everything that followed. The stories that don't make it onto a resume, portfolio, and LinkedIn profile. Zeren believes that our community deserves direct access to the people who are actually doing it at the highest level. Honest, unfiltered conversations with world-class leaders on the doubts, the defining moments, and what it really takes to lead at the top. This is Hired to Lead, and I'm excited to jump into it with today's guest, Avi Ashkenazi, Senior Director at Deel, the global HR and payroll platform that's fundamentally changing how companies hire, manage, and pay talent across borders. Hi, Avi.
Hello. How's it going?
Hi. So we met probably about 4 years ago now in person, which feels like it was 2 minutes ago. It's gone by in a flash. And at the time, you were head of design at Shopify. And I know that you are creative by nature. You're a musician, you write poetry. So I'd love for you to start by telling us how you got into design and the journey that's ultimately led you to where you are now at Deel.
I would say, like anything, my journey also started with a trauma
Okay.
where my parents told me, "Hey, you can't be a musician." I was like, "Mom, Dad, I want to work. I want to learn music. I want to do a degree in music." They were like, "Well, you can leave the house and then you can do that." And so I was like, "Okay, what can I do?" After finishing being upset, what can I do? And then I got to all I care about is being creative, be able to create stuff. And at that time, a girlfriend was doing design, and that's basically how I got started.
Wow. As simple as that, hey?
Yeah,
Well,
you get my dad used to say, you can get slapped on one
yeah.
side and go to the other side, or you can just like decide where you want to go. So I
Yeah.
basically I got a slap, but I also decided where I want to go.
Brilliant. And you've had a pretty successful one, actually, your career so far. And you went from leading design at one of the most iconic e-commerce companies in the world to a senior leadership role at Deel, which is really exciting, but a very different kind of product. I'd love to know what drew you to that move and what surprised you when you got there.
I actually think that it's not such a different product
Okay.
fundamentally. The way I look at the roles that I choose, I really enjoy working on operating system. So when I was at Samsung, I was working on operating system for the home, so televisions, audio systems. At Shopify, it was the operating system for e-commerce and entrepreneurship. And at Deel is the operating system for creation of work. After 3.5 years at Shopify, it felt like it's going to be a really, really great time. And Deel seems like a rocket ship. And I know now that it is still a rocket ship. And I got really motivated by it. I've seen Alex, the CEO, how visionary he is. And it felt like the right thing to do at that moment of time.
Yeah. And they're very AI centric. And with that, how does it actually change the way design teams operate day to day? I mean, everyone is talking about AI, and I'd love to dig in a little bit about how that looks for you guys.
So look, AI is everywhere. Everyone's talking about it all the time. Everyone is aspiring to be there. The other day, I saw a really interesting graph that showcased all people in humanity and show how many people are actually utilizing AI to code and create things. And it's about 2.5 million people that are doing that. The rest of the billions do not. For the majority of them, they don't even are on like a GPT free plan.
Yeah.
So for AI companies, the market to expand is so big. Now, moving on to Deel and what it means to be an AI centric company, it means that we have this cross discipline support of how can we do and evolve things with AI. It means that everyone can afford being a builder. This is the first time that you have a chance as a designer to really dive into data and ask the questions without needing to wait for the answer or without like pestering a data scientist. It's the first time that you can go and actually look at product strategy, or basically learn any new discipline that you want by yourself. And that enables you to essentially work in smaller teams because of that, because essentially you don't need a 7 people team. You can essentially have someone who's more technical, someone who's more visionary, someone who's more business oriented, paired together, and you can drive really, really big impact just by doing that. And in fact, at Deel, we are seeing some of those really interesting, super hyper small teams that are going and delivering really, really great work. I would also say that for the company to help someone to be AI, you need to have some sort of good token optimization. If there's one thing that you hear today more than, hey, you're muted, is I ran out of tokens. This is basically the most common sentence that I hear people say at Deel and in a variety of other places. And that is sometimes because you don't know how to use it, or you're just like, splashing. And sometimes it is because you feel like unblocked and you feel this is the time to do everything that you always dreamt of doing. And I think that companies' role is to figure out a way for people not to do duplicated work, to set up those frameworks, to set up those bases, and allow people to build from that point upwards. So the company is setting the floor, and we are there to basically set the roof.
And I actually remember you saying the other day, actually, that it's actually great from a designer's perspective that the teams are smaller because they have so much more scope, and it's more exciting for them. But I'd love to know, what about the design process? I mean, how have you seen that change? Obviously, since new AI tools have come into play, do you have any examples of your working process at Deel right now that you can share?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of designers. Just this morning, I had a conversation with the designer who was like, I opened Figma today for the first time after 2 weeks.
Interesting.
So it doesn't happen all the time. And some people are more comfortable starting there, but you definitely have now more variety of ways. You have an easier path to ship to production. You have an easier path to just come up with something that would have and be a good conversation starter with teams for a feature that you want to do. And suddenly also, if you care about micro animations, the light, this is something that allows you to really bring those things into the product. Another thing that I've seen happening, changing in the process, is how dependent both designers and also other disciplines are in the design system. The design system is basically the fundamental piece that without it, like a prototype would not necessarily work. And we've been through the stages. We've done that also at Shopify, where it was you need to hard code stuff and you prompt something and you get something completely different from the way Shopify or Deel looks like. And then later on was able to plug in the whole design system and just get like full UI that is functional and looks exactly like the app. Now, there's obviously caveats here because you can't use the components that are built for everything necessarily for new things. You need to think what's new, what is going to be different, what should I use differently for this use case than use cases that were there before. And that's where the design system team visionary scope is really, really important. You need to understand that as things get easier, you can ship and build more things. And if you can do all of that, then you need to have some sort of changing in the base and some sort of democratization of modules and components that are being contributed by different people. So as an example, we've seen like a model that has been used by 7 different teams. You can basically take that, propose that to the design system, and they make it available for everyone. Well, every team is gradually evolving that one after the other.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because all the lines are blurring now, and some people even say that the traditional design role is completely being eaten up by engineers who could design and AI that can prototype. Do you think that just the distinct discipline of design is under threat, or do you think it's actually an opportunity?
I don't think it's under threat. I think that in life, you get return on attention. So wherever you pay your attention, you get more out of it. And some people care about design and some people care less about design, care more about the architecture, care more about the business fundamentals. And so if they don't look at it, yes, they might find an easier way to get to the floor of it, but even the floor sometimes might not be right, as I just mentioned. It could be that the floor is just not fit for purpose for the use case that you're trying to do. If it's for example, a new product or a new process that was never done there before.
Mhm.
And the amount of time that you would invest in it is visible. So if you, in the past, you could say, hey, what is luxury in physical goods? Luxury in physical goods is being measured by lots of things like space and craftsmanship and how the leather was made or how the diamond was polished, etc. That thing is also visible in digital experiences. You can see when someone gave a fuck
Mhm.
and really invested a lot of time in polishing and making it
Yeah.
beautiful. And that's why you have a lot of people who are using Linear and tools like that and prefer not to use GitHub, for example, or Jira.
And it must be, I don't know, is it changed the way you hire for design as well? Like, what is it that you're looking for that you wouldn't have prioritized 5 years ago?
It totally changed. And I think that if you look at the disciplines, like when design started, you had a combination of people that coming from psychology, ergonomics, and the advertising world. And then there was a new generation where some of those folks arrived to digital design, but did not have the capabilities of creating like high, really polished design if they came from like psychology or ergonomics or user research. And in that world, there was a necessity of doing this. Or alternatively, there was a lot of companies like SAP, for example, that have very old antique systems that look very hard to use.
Mhm.
And so there was this renaissance of interaction design and UI. And then after a period of time, a lot of those agencies like McKinsey and Deloitte came with all those design sprint and all those playbooks of like, if you do these things right, based on this process, double diamond, everything's going to be perfect. And so you had a slew of designers that were trained on that. And they all came from the same case studies and everything followed like the exact same pattern. And a lot of those people are now hired and working inside companies, but did not spend and did not do the reps of having a polished UI or thinking of things relatively in flows rather than in like flat individual screens. And AI basically eliminates that thing. You can basically design one screen and you can have all the states at a snap of a finger.
Yeah.
And then there's just work and polishing and figuring that out. So suddenly there is, again, high demand for more UI, more craft, more interaction, more ways of making it feel real and also bringing it into reality. And the people that came from more UX perspective are slightly at a disadvantage in this age. And it's a pendulum, right? Like you, as I mentioned, it already swung this side and then the other side. So it might come back towards the other side. But what's true is that you cannot just follow a playbook. You do not have a specific process. You just need to go with the flow and go with the times
Yeah.
and find the best ways to do design and stand out in today's world.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because genuinely people show the work that they've done in work in their portfolio, whereas now we're seeing a little bit more with people vibe coding, sorry, and they're actually creating their own work. Do you like to see that on the portfolio? Like what when you see a portfolio, what is it that you're looking for and what really stands out to make that person employable to Deal?
I love seeing personal projects. I
Yeah.
think personal project means that you're obsessed, means that it's not about like, hey, I had lots of time, so I just went and did the personal project.
Yeah.
It is the fact that you love design. Because if you have a lot of personal time and your preference is to cook, that's totally fine. Or your preference is to travel, that's also totally fine. But who would you prefer to work with? Someone who's obsessed with their craft or someone who prefers to travel and cook? I know who I would prefer to work with. And I know that for me, I want to be with people as obsessed as I am and as passionate as I am. And when I have time, I do design. It could be physical design. It doesn't have to be vibe coding. It could be that I will design a chair or a table or something like that. But I would experiment and try all those things. And those are the things that at the end people remember you, the guy who was singing, the guy who traveled to 125 countries, etc. What I look for is not just personal or side projects, but also obsession. If you like to travel to 100 countries. If you like Japan, know everything about Japan. If you like Game of Thrones, know all the plots, all the books, all the spin-offs, and have conspiracy theories of why Targaryen lost the war.
Fair enough. I like it. And is there a certain way that people should be presenting their portfolios these days? I get so many people say to me, like, I want to start from scratch. I feel like what I'm presenting isn't getting through the door. Like, what is the best way for designers genuinely to now present their portfolio and their work?
I think it's a combination of things. I look, at least for portfolios, I look at it like a teaser, right? If you are a motion designer, you have a show reel, 2 minutes, boom, 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 everything that you've done, bouncy music, and people get the wow effect, and they decide if they want to go and start working with you again. So if you could do something like this in the world of product design, I think that's beautiful and great. But if you don't want to do it in the form of a video, that's also fine. Make sure that in your portfolio, there is like samples of what you think is great. A portfolio is something that you share and you work on like gradually. It's not something, hey, I just lost my job and I go and I spend like 2 weeks and think everything's going to be okay. I work on my portfolio every like quarter. I take like the best work and I am trying to tell the story. I think at work, one of the biggest mistakes that I have done when I was younger was I was only focusing on the bad stuff, meaning every day you wake up and you're like, hey, the interface is wrong, this thing is wrong, we have this problem and we need to solve it for customers, etc., etc. And I forgot at the end to tell the great stories, the success stories. And I used to tell it to the team, but I didn't tell it to myself.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is really, really important. You need to keep maintaining and nurturing your self-esteem, like ignore the imposter syndrome and keep remembering the good stuff and try to find ways to tell them as better stories. So I treat my job, a lot of it, even my LinkedIn writing, as content creation. I always am trying to package what we have for different audiences. And then at the end, when you get to do a portfolio, it makes the job way easier. Practically, I would say focus on the flows. At the end, as designers, we are designing moments. So looking at a flat screen or like a bunch of flat screen one next to another is way less impactful than seeing you play with a prototype.
Yeah.
If you have a prototype that you played with, it's less impactful to show like a Figma demo. It's more impactful if you have actually prototyped it or you recorded like a live environment with real data, of course, without exposing personal information of customers.
Yeah.
And if you have anything that is like more exciting, start with the highlights of the work, not with like, I had this problem and this is the process that I've gone through. No one cares about the process unless the outcome is good. So show me the outcome first. And if the outcome is good, I will dig into like, okay, how did this person achieve that outcome?
Yeah, definitely. And just going back to Deel then, so they operate across hundreds of countries, huge range of regulatory environments. How do you design for that level of complexity without losing clarity for the end user?
I think it's one of the biggest challenges at Deel. We have so many personas: the payroll manager, the finance manager, the company CEO, and like a worker and a manager, etc. So, and each one of those can plug into different Deel products. Deel has tremendous amount of products, and they're all, by the way, profitable products. And so designing for that, when you think of a challenge, let's say like navigation, which we completely revamped just now, or the homepage that we're working on, we already did some revamp, but there's like way more coming there, or completely redesigning the mobile app, which we have done, which is more B2C oriented because these are customers and their money is there. So it's almost like a half HR, half banking app. So thinking on those aspects, it's really important to understand that the best way to solve it is through frameworks. Onboarding is a framework from our perspective. Like plugging in with other companies and developers is also a framework. The AI interactions and how we work with agents is also a framework. So you have like a centralized team that is creating a framework, and all the other teams are basically coming, contributing their use cases into that. So it's almost working similar to the way the design system team is working. We provide the base, we provide the framework, and we elevate it and update it based on the use cases we see from other teams, which I think is really, really interesting also as a designer, because sometimes in some organization, you might work on like this little tiny piece in the interface, and you would not have interaction or interface with like other teams. Whereas at Deel, you have a really, really nice opportunity to interact with everyone across the board, with all the other teams, because for any feature that you're building, it is expected to work on desktop, on mobile, on web, on with an AI agent, with keyboard shortcuts, with the mouse, with the shelf, et cetera, et cetera. So all those paradigms are anchored at those frameworks that the teams are creating, and you as designer are interacting with at least 10 other designers every time that you're trying to solve something.
Wow. And I mean, you've led at serious scale as well. What does great design leadership look like at that level? And have you evolved your style, over your time since you were at iWalker and Shopify? Like, what does it look like now for you?
Definitely leadership style has changed. I think that as the teams that I managed grew in number of people, I had to learn how to work through managers and then learn how far and how deep in the details I should go in. So this balance between strategy, diving into the details, even like leaving some times for myself here and there to do some IC work to empower the team or to inspire the team as well, has changed over time. Even now, for example, like I've seen that a lot of the designers are really, really interested in making high quality videos, for example. And so I build an app called Vidit that lets every design and basically everyone at Deel now to record awesome videos like a screen studio or something like that. And I've noticed, for example, scenarios where all the designers are using lorem ipsum in their designs, which makes it really, really hard for me to assess the design, if it's good or not, if it's going to work for the use case and the persona. And so I made a Figma plugin that basically plugs into real data and brings those data into the prototype. Again, not something that I have to do, but like if you see a problem at scale, I think that's kind of like one of the things that you as a director need to come in and solve over time. And I do love doing a skip step. I do love going into the actual designs as well, but I also am conscious that it's not going to look good if I'm going to work 24 hours a day. And at the same time, I want to make sure that I would enable the design team to work with feedback on a global maxima rather than local maxima. So as much as, it is important that I would dive into like a specific problem that is happening, let's say on the fintech team, it is more important that I would come with principles and tell the team, hey, based on these principles, this is where we should go to. Because then what happens is that over time, all the designers that I'm interacting with understand the belief that I have, the principles, they can predict my questions, and that overall makes the product as a whole much better, because now it's not that the feedback is situational for that particular problem. It is a global feedback, and they know that it is the new bar that they need to reach to.
You make it sound so easy. But what's the hardest thing about leading a design function inside a company that's growing as fast as Deel? Because I know you guys are hiring like hotcakes. Tell us some of the downsides to that.
Well, I think that one of the hardest things that designers are experiencing right now is this change of speed. So in the past, designers were always ahead of engineers because engineering and writing code used to take time. And also engineers did a lot of mistakes. So there was lots of bugs. So to get a feature out was like a major squeeze. Whereas now, well, AI can write your code like in 5 minutes, and you can go ahead and check it, et cetera, but everything is way faster. So now engineers are way faster than they were before, and designers are basically struggling to be ahead to some extent. And I think it's a really, really interesting challenge. And also, by the way, for product managers. And I think the solution for this is, I don't have the perfect answer, but having systems working in frameworks really, really help because it enables the engineers to make less mistakes. So it makes sure that the floor is higher and we make less mistakes from the get-go. Encouraging engineers to go more into data thinking, talking to customers, explaining that the work of design is not just creating experiences and UI. It is to align with the team, is to find what is the right problem that we solve, to prioritize, to look at the data, triangulate, is really, really important piece. And also making sure that we build the right tools for the designers to be faster. If you look at what AI companies did right now, with all the respect to Claude Design, it is Claude code packaged in a design language. It's not really fundamentally anything different yet. And so engineers had way more support in kind of like evolving. And I think that designers are now in a magical place where they can create their own new tools. And that is something that I'm looking forward to do. I don't know if Anthropic or OpenAI will do this. The way I look at it, we have all those technologies. We can start building those tools ourselves, with one of the main fundamental things that I think that is the reason why Figma is still here, which is collaboration. Because like sending a PR and having someone else checking it without even talking to you is not really collaboration. It is isolated collaboration. And in Figma, you do see each other's cursors, you do work together, you do move things together. How can we bring that into the environment of AI is a really interesting question that I'm excited to see how we will figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I can imagine, junior designers now are probably going to have a very different type of education as maybe you did when you first started out as a designer. And obviously they can jump into Claude and they can prototype and ship really, really fast. What are the things you would be telling juniors now to make sure that they're doing than just jumping in straight into the tool? What are the things that they should be doing on the side to make sure that they still have that level of taste and craft?
I think it's really important to not be lazy. And what I mean by that is like when you work with AI, it could be like a very lean back experience. You prompt something and then you just like sit back and you see the thing. And that's, to some extent what I don't like about the term vibe coding. It's because it's based on vibe and you're going with the flow and whatever happens, happens, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas in design, and if you really know the problem, then you need to be intentional. And at some point you need to be like, wait, no, that's not the direction that I want this thing to go to. I actually want to shape it as I wish. And that is way harder to do. That is, exact coding, or call it however you want, but proper coding with language. You need to be able to get to be opinionated and to do what you actually wanted to do, rather than just like keep going with the flow. And so the other thing is AI is very verbose, and sometimes it's going to write bullshit, and sometimes it's going to write like really interesting things that you can learn from. But I know that even myself, sometimes when I'm tired, I'm just going to write stuff and keep writing. I'm not even going to read the reply. I'm just going to go and see if it solved the thing that I want to solve. If not, I'm just going to ask for it again. And sometimes after like 5 times of that, I'm going to look back and I'm be like, actually, I should have read it because it did say that it's not possible because X, Y, Z. So now I need to find a different way of going around it. So I think reading and learning it whilst having the right judgment of understanding that maybe not 100% of it is actually true is a really, really important skill. But it's tough because there's a lot of AI is very verbose, and B, there's a lot of garbage that you're putting in that the AI is hallucinating to you. So it is a balance, but I think having the patience, having the attention, and having the persistence is really, really important. If you think about it, when you do, when you play music, for example, like you need to practice so many times to get really, really good at it. You can't just like go also abandon it for like 2 years and pick up a guitar and be like Bon Jovi. It's not going to happen.
We wish.
So exactly. So it's the same thing with AI. You need to put the reps, put the time in, and then you'll get to good results.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. So I'm now going to throw in some quick fire questions at you. First instinct, no overthinking. Ready?
Ready.
Design tool you couldn't live without.
I guess now Claude.
Yeah, thought you were going to say that.
Yeah.
The best piece of career advice you've ever been given?
Um, it's not just hard work; it's also smart work. So don't just spend the time, pause for a second, reflect, figure out how you can do something better, and then do the same hard work, but whilst everything is way more productive.
Great advice. And leader who shaped you?
I really loved seeing Andrea Margini at Shopify. She was incredible. The way she was able to handle the political questions, the way she was able to bring design to the table was phenomenal. She really made sure that we are an equal voice. And I believe generally that it's really important to be equal voices. I don't believe in design led. There's no such thing. Nothing should be like one department led. It is a team sport to build amazing things. So she brought us to the table, and I'm very grateful for that.
Taste. Can it be taught or are you born with it?
Unfortunately, you are born with it. You can improve your taste, but unfortunately, I believe that some people has it and some people does not have it. Very much like some people can be James LeBron, and some people cannot be James LeBron, no matter how much basketball they will play.
Fair. And
There's
what?
always room, by the way, there's always room for other players, right? Not everyone needs to be, but you will get like, I don't know, 100th of his salary. That's life.
Yeah, true that. What's a word you'd use to describe the future of design? A word, one word.
One word. At this point of time, I would say gregarious, just because it's just so much fun. I feel it's so friendly and so accessible that, yeah, I would say gregarious.
Fab. Thank you, Avi. It's been a pleasure. Now I know Deel is hiring. What's the best way for people to find you and find out more and apply? Where can they go?
Well, find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I try to post every day, so hopefully I'm on your feed. And if not, let me know.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm loving your content. Keep it up. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I know I have. So please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone in your network who you think would get something out of it. We'd love to keep this growing community. This has been High to Lead, brought to you by Zeren, part of Renovata. I'm Kim Wardle. Until next time.